Madam President, Mr. Secretary General, distinguished delegates, for 8 decades, the United Nations has played a pivotal role in combating humanity's global challenges. Over that time, it has led our common efforts on collective security, nuclear non-proliferation, peacekeeping, development, poverty reduction, sustainability, and human rights. But we must also face the truth. The world around us has changed profoundly and, unfortunately, not for the better. That's why the United Nations remains today a symbol of hope for millions around the globe. This historic meeting is a unique opportunity to recommit ourselves to the founding principles and goals of our universal and truly indispensable organization. However, we cannot turn a blind eye to the real crisis trust in multilateral institutions. Serious violations of international law have become new normality, which undermines global stability and erodes confidence between peoples, between political leaders, and between states. In this challenging time, we all must empower the United Nations to make it more adjustable to the realities of today's unpredictable world. The spirit of mutual understanding and eagerness to cooperate must prevail over dangerous warmongering. State leaders have a responsibility to move toward making peace. A failure of the current generation of leaders to act is not an option, because future generations will pay a much greater price. In this regard, comprehensive reform of the United Nations is a strategic necessity, not a subject for endless contemplations. We need to establish a new group of truly dedicated people who will highly professionally and without any hesitations make concrete proposals for reforming the United Nations to make it better suited to the challenges of today and objectives of tomorrow. A central pillar of this bold effort to renew the United Nations should be a reform of the Security Council. Major powers of Asia, Africa, and Latin America should be represented in the Security Council on the rotational basis. In addition, Kazakhstan strongly believes that the voices of responsible middle powers also need to be seriously amplified in the Security Council. In fact, they have already started to play a larger positive role in international relations, bringing balance and building trust. They can act as bridges within the United Nations when major powers are divided or failing to resolve pressing issues of common concern. Above all, a credible United Nations for the 21st century requires member states to take concrete steps toward durable peace and security. Otherwise, the United Nations is doomed to forever mitigate consequences while root causes forever proliferate. We can begin this process already today by reaffirming our steadfast commitment to the Charter of the United Nations. The founding principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and peaceful resolution of disputes must be upheld without exception. Selective application of the Charter undermines its credibility. The world needs a new consensus based on trust, inclusiveness, and shared responsibility. For example, the enemy state clauses of the Charter, historical remnants of the Second World War, have already been recognized by the overwhelming majority of the international community, is obsolete. For all these reasons, it's time to have a serious conversation about Charter review. Today we face an alarming reality. Arms control treaties are collapsing, and with them, so are the foundations of strategic stability. Global military spending in 2024 hit a record $2.7 trillion. The global cost of violence reached nearly $20 trillion. Therefore, rebuilding a robust global security architecture should remain a top priority for the international community. We advocate relaunching high-level dialogue among nuclear powers and stronger multilateral action to drastically reduce the looming threat of nuclear weapons. More widely, we must begin the hard work of getting rid of the militant mindset. We can do so by tracking closely how much our countries invest in peace. Kazakhstan is ready to host a new dialogue on nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. We can focus on informal, inclusive exchanges that reinforce the NPT and support progress toward the CTBT. We also call to advance our proposal to establish international agency for biological safety and security. Kazakhstan remains concerned by the Ukrainian crisis, which continues to seriously harm civilians, damage global trust, and undermine international security. Nonetheless, bilateral and international diplomatic efforts on this conflict should continue along with political flexibility to meet the long-term interests of both states. Territorial disputes are never easy to resolve and require mutual restraint and responsibility for the sake of future generations. The psychology of animosity drags all involved in conflicts to the abyss, leaving no chance to reach peace. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has reached a disastrous scale that cannot be ignored. This conflict stems from a complex historical background. We cannot ignore the root cause of this belligerence. Kazakhstan calls for full protection of all civilians and unhindered humanitarian access in strict compliance with international humanitarian law. We reaffirm our support of the two-state solution, with the United Nations playing a central role. Kazakhstan acknowledges diplomatic initiatives aimed at regional reconciliation in the Middle East, including the Arab Peace Initiative, the New York Declaration, and the Abraham Accords, and others. They demonstrate that leadership and political will can turn division into cooperation and shared benefit. We also welcome the normalization of relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia under the mediation of the United States President. It shows that even entrenched conflicts can be settled through diplomacy and common sense. Guided by this principle, Kazakhstan consistently favors diplomacy over escalation and dialogue over force. Current geopolitical tensions sometimes tempt some leaders to claim that a clash of civilizations is inevitable. Yet, these divisions are not fact or fate. They are political choices. Global public goods, such as science, medicine, sports, religion, and culture should not become subjects of geopolitical divisions and sanctions. These spheres of human activity bind us together under a humanitarian umbrella. When political leaders make irresponsible statements or take reckless decisions, manipulating religion and identity for political gain, they in fact seriously damage the trust and goodwill in striving for peace. Political leadership must be rooted in mutual understanding and respect, not mutual suspicion and arrogance. Tolerance and wisdom are the foundation of lasting peace and must be upheld through the rule of law. Dear friends and colleagues, we observe a growing fragmentation and political bias of investment flows. As a result, global FDI fell to $1.5 trillion last year. Kazakhstan strongly advocates for greater international investment cooperation. More than $400 billion have been attracted to our economy within 30 years of independence. Our commitment to open market principles is absolutely firm and will remain a cornerstone of our state policy. Located in the very center of Eurasia, Kazakhstan is poised to play a crucial role as a logistic hub, handling 80% of all overland transit between Asia and Europe. We are investing tens of billions of dollars in our transport and transit infrastructure, including the Belt and Road Initiative, the North-South and Trans-Caspian transit corridors. Kazakhstan will continue to develop regional supply chains that are the heart of emerging global transport network. By 2029, we plan to build 5,000 kilometers of new railway lines. Kazakhstan has made the Sustainable Development Goals a core pillar of its national agenda, integrating their targets into state planning and budgeting. With the support of the United Nations Secretary General and partner states, Kazakhstan now hosts the new United Nations Regional Center for SDGs for Central Asia and Afghanistan in Almaty. Today, Central Asia is demonstrating a renewed sense of unity and mutual trust. It is emerging as a proactive contributor to international peace and progress. The Central Asian Five are strengthening cooperation, proving that regional solidarity can be a powerful force for development and security. This has enabled our region to engage key global partners in the unique Central Asia Plus dialogue format. Kazakhstan believes that inclusive development in Afghanistan is a basis for long-term regional peace and stability. We continue to support the Afghan people through humanitarian assistance and cooperation in trade, food security, infrastructure, and transport connectivity. Distinguished delegates, last year was the hottest year in human history, and Central Asia is warming at twice the global rate. The melting of glaciers in the Alatau Mountains is accelerating, multiplying threats to water and food security for millions. Kazakhstan has drawn profound lessons from the tragedy of the Aral Sea. Thanks to our consistent efforts, including at the international level, we succeeded in preserving the northern part of the sea. As the current chair of the International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, Kazakhstan will continue to play a proactive role in this common priority. Meanwhile, the Caspian Sea is rapidly shrinking. It is no longer just a regional concern. It is a global warning signal. Therefore, we call for urgent steps to preserve the Caspian water resources with our partners across the region and the wider international community. Last year, Kazakhstan co-organized the One Water Summit with France, Saudi Arabia, and the World Bank. Looking forward, stronger coordination, investments, and sustainable solutions are urgently needed to prevent future water crises. To help advance this agenda, Kazakhstan will host a regional ecological summit in Astana in April next year to be convened in partnership with the United Nations and other international organizations. As part of our broader environmental commitment, Kazakhstan is implementing a nationwide Clean Kazakhstan campaign. This national movement mobilizes millions of volunteers in cleanup actions, waste reduction, and eco-education. At this initiative of Kazakhstan, the United Nations declared 2026 the International Year of Volunteers for Sustainable Development. We invite all member states to collaborate on this important endeavor. In this spirit, I propose that the General Assembly adopt a resolution proclaiming April 22 as the International Day of Greening the Planet. Dear friends, Kazakhstan views artificial intelligence not as one more technological advancement, but as a major breakthrough that can be a true engine of human progress. Yet, as artificial intelligence accelerates, so do the related risks, specifically deepening technological, economic, and geopolitical divides. At the same time, we should not let ethical norms fall behind this rapid evolution. Pressing questions of fairness, accountability, and individual rights must be addressed with clarity and urgency. We must act collectively to ensure that every country can benefit from AI. Kazakhstan welcomes the establishment under UN auspices of the Global Dialogue on AI Governance. We stand ready to actively contribute to this platform to help ensure that AI remains safe, inclusive, and human-centered. In Kazakhstan, artificial intelligence will be integrated across all sectors of economy and public services. The basic infrastructure to deliver this plan is being built, and our bright young people are getting ready to turn this vision into reality. Our strategic goal is to transform Kazakhstan into a fully digital power within the next 3 years. Large-scale digitalization and widespread use of AI have become a national priority in Kazakhstan. E-government is an important pillar of our national development strategy. Around 90% of public services are already digitalized. Kazakhstan has recently launched its fastest national supercomputer ever, but AI and automation are expected to threaten jobs in many countries. That's why digital progress must go hand in hand with professional education. Therefore, Kazakhstan believes it is imperative not just to increase employment, but to valorize the technical professions. Ladies and gentlemen, amid global turbulence, Kazakhstan is pursuing a bold national renewal to build a truly just and fair state. Over the last 3 years, we have carried out large-scale political and economic reforms that are unprecedented in our part of the world. Through a national referendum, we introduced a single 7-year presidential term, thereby strengthening democratic accountability. We remain committed to the formula of strong president, influential parliament, and accountable government. Guided by strong wish to modernize Kazakhstan, I have proposed a single-chamber parliament for a national referendum to consider. Our objective is to continuously embrace the political system to make it more transparent, effective, and reflective of people's aspirations. At the heart of these reforms lies a clear principle: law and order must prevail. We believe that only governance rooted in common sense and the rule of law can ensure public order and protect the rights of all citizens. It creates good conditions for international investment, trade, cooperation, and more broadly, the dynamic development of our country. The interests of law-abiding people and decent citizens must always come first, maintained through justice, accountability, and mutual respect. Kazakhstan's economy is showing clear signs of sustainability and resilience. This year, economic growth is expected to exceed 6%, underscoring the sustainability of our economy as the largest in our part of the world. But we are not complacent. We will continue our efforts to ensure a long-term growth. Kazakhstan's energy strategy is based on 4 pillars: oil and gas, coal, uranium, and critical minerals. These precious assets are the basis of reliable energy partnerships. Climate change and the green agenda cannot be accepted by all countries that have huge deposits like coal, which nowadays can be cleaned up by advanced technologies. That's why we have committed to decarbonize our country in 35 years. Renewable energy is not the single solution to all energy problems. Agriculture is another driver of our development with huge potential for global markets. Kazakhstan's grain export capacity has amounted to 12 million tons, reaching a great number of international markets, creating new opportunities for trade expansion using enhanced transport connectivity. We will continue our cooperation with all major international partners and regional stakeholders to further diversify our external trade and economy, making it more inclusive and resilient. Excellencies, we will remain firmly on this path, deepening governance reforms at home while supporting global governance abroad. Kazakhstan will continue to serve as a bridge builder and peacemaker. It will also continue to choose balance over domination, cooperation over confrontation, and peace over war. We stand ready in cooperation with other players, stakeholders in the international community to renew the promise of the United Nations as a beacon of peace, justice, and cooperation.